We got flaming wheels and 10-horned beasts and weirdness. It's the prophets, man. The prophets are a fun section because they do a lot of strange stuff, and it's fun to read, it's fun to see, but they always had a very specific purpose in what they were doing. Now, yes, the prophets did have a lot of creative and very flamboyant pictures in their prophecies, but a lot of that didn't pertain to what we would consider the future. In fact, if you boil it down, a lot of it didn't have anything to do with the future. Most of them talked about circumstances and events contemporary to them in their lives at this point. In fact, it was only about 5% of the prophecies that talked about the New Covenant era, or the time in the New Testament. Only maybe 2% of the prophecies recorded in the Bible actually talked about the Messiah himself. And only about 1%, not even 1%, is about things that are future to us in our time. So, this idea of prophets telling the future all the time is not necessarily accurate. So instead of foretelling what was coming on, a more accurate description, a more accurate word would be basically forthtelling. Just telling people what was already they should have already known and calling them back to a life in line with what God says to do. Now the second thing that makes them weird is because of that word I mentioned before, oracles. In our circles today, the oracle has a very negative connotation. It brings up a lot of the pictures of the occult or pagan religions and those sort of things. And that's true. I understand where that comes from. And yes, that term is used in conjunction with a lot of the temple prophetesses or bad practices or going to an oracle and paying money and getting a word, whatever. Got it. But what the word oracle actually means is a little bit different to how we think about it today. Oracle, in the Greek, is translated as logion. L-O-G-I-O-N. Logion. Like the word logos, which means word. Logion means word, but it also means this is the word of God. This is a word. This is a word from the Lord. All right? In the Old Testament, they had something very similar. I don't know how to pronounce it, don't know how to say it, but it's Dabar, D-A-B-A-R, Dabar. And it means it's the same thing. It means this is a word of the Lord. This is the word from God. This is the word of God. So an oracle really simply means a message from God. Now I want to hang on to that word oracle for a little bit because that's what the genre of this type of writing is about. See, we call them the prophets in our English word. The prophets of the Bible. But how were they written? Why were they written so weirdly? That was because they were oracles. Oracles mean, like we said, just a quick word from the Lord. It could be long, it could be really short. It could be multiple different things at different segments in time that come together to make a message. Sort of like what we see in Daniel. And even in Hosea. That is what an oracle is like. This time frame right here, at this moment in time, we're getting a word from the Lord. And then, a little bit of silence, maybe wait, and then you get another part. And then, wait again, and then you get another part. It is a very interesting way of writing. We don't do that much. We don't have that. It's kind of like as we hear an unfolding news story and we get little snippets of the facts and what's going on, only at the end of the day, after it's all said and done, can we put those little snippets together in series and make sense of what happened in the whole part of things. That's sort of what's happening, but not really, because like we said, these are things the Jews, these are things that they should have already known. So what does that mean for us? Well, on the front half, it gives us a picture of what it means to maintain your heart for God. Just not losing the fervor, not leaving what we know to be true. And secondly, it gives us a roadmap of what to follow as we live out our lives. Yes, things are a little bit different now because we don't live under the law anymore. And that will be addressed in our upcoming second part of this series. But we can see how that moves us forward. We can see God's guiding hand. And if we don't want to suffer the same fates or live with the same consequences, we know what needs to be done. Now, again, like I said, things are different, and we are not held to that standard of the law like the Jewish people were. You have to put it in its context, understand where it comes from, but it gives us a roadmap of how we can live our lives as Christians. And that was the first part of our series, Playing with Fire. We just went through the whole Old Testament, and we're going to take a break for the summer. I'm going to leave this alone for a while. I'm not going to post new videos for a couple months, and we'll pick this back up in September. After everybody gets back to their routines, everything's back into school, we're going to fire things back up again. Hopefully everything will be semi-back to normal. After that, we'll pick it up with the New Testament. I'll reiterate a bunch of the Bible study things that we had before, maybe even post some of those videos again so you can rewatch them, and then we'll just dive in to the New Testament, talk about the genres that are present there and how they work for us as Christians.